Tonight we're calling this Reimagining Warm Springs. I'm assuming that every one of you is in this room because you have some interests and passions and curiosity about what is going on up there at that wonderful place with the hot springs. So I'm going to give you an overview of what's going on, what we see as some of the possibilities, the Warm Springs Alliance, who we are as a group, and how you can get involved. And then we're going to have some breakout groups where you can actually talk to some of the team leaders and come up with some next actions and decide how you want to participate, because this is all about the community. So come on in. Hi Dan, thanks so much for coming. So, Warm Springs, I'm curious, who all has been there on the ground, looked at what's going on? Okay, of those of you who have been there, how many of you have actually seen this water? Awesome, not all, but a good number of you. Excellent. I would really encourage you to go check it out. I'm going to show you where you can find it. Here we have an aerial view. This white rectangle down at the bottom is the historic building. Those loopy things are the trails. Now, when you go there, 840 North, 3rd West, you can walk up those trails, and right where that V is at the very, very top, you'll find a couple of places where the hot water actually surfaces. So even people who know the building and know the place still don't know about that water that's there. So we're going to talk for a minute about the history of this place. Way, way back when, before Brigham Young and some of our ancestors showed up, there was a very large hot spring lake there. And because we're on the Wasatch Fault Line, there's a lot of spots where the water come up. So this was a gathering place for our indigenous people for a long, long time. It was Ute territory. The Goshutes, the Shoshone, the Paiute, they all gathered there during the winter. It was a peaceful place where they had an agreement. It was considered treaty land, so everybody got to be there and be friendly. That was a long time. I don't even know how far back that goes, but we're working to find out. Then, of course, the settlers came into the valley, and this is them coming down Immigration Canyon. It wasn't long before they found this hot water. Actually, it was just a few days until they started soaking in it. What would you do if you just came across the place? They said, wow, this is cool, we're going to soak here. So they did, and it actually became one of the absolute first social gathering places for the whole valley. So we have a resident historian with this. Michael can add more to this if you would like. We've actually got somebody who studied this for a long time and knows a lot about these interesting stories. So there was a bathhouse built by the settlers, and they kept outgrowing it really because a lot of people were wanting to soak there. This was where they had one of the first stops for the train or the trolley. And then in 1921, this building was built. The year before this was built, there were actually 133,000 people that soaked in that water in 1920. Yeah, amazing. So this building was constructed, and it became quite the hot spot. A lot of people came through. It was a tourist destination, and there were some interesting things going on in that building. There was a cafe and some massage and a barber shop and some cool things happening there. They had dances and all kinds of community events. This is Beck Street looking north. It looks a little bit different now. This is the building on the inside. This is a large pool room. This is a 90-foot long room, 60 feet wide. It's quite amazing. I mean, this picture is impressive, but if you ever got to stand in that room, you would see how spectacular it is. So again, this was the hot spot. This was Warm Springs Plunge. It had different names for on and off, but for 50 years it served as a gathering place. All kinds of wonderful reasons to come together, but most importantly, the water. There's amazing hot springs, mineral water. Then it became empty. I won't go into the details about why it was closed down. That's an interesting story too, but it just got quieter in that part of town and got shut down. Stayed vacant for a while, and then it became the Children's Museum. Who all went to the Children's Museum? Okay. Almost everybody. Unless you grew up somewhere else, you know this place as the Children's Museum. It was there from 83 to 2004. Thousands of people got to enjoy the place then. And then it closed down. They moved over to Gateway, and this beautiful building again was empty, and it's been empty ever since. So there it sits, except for our train club. Hi, Mark.
Hello, everybody.
The Golden Spike Railroad Club has been in the basement of that building since 1983?
83.
83. So this is a close-up shot of this giant layout they have of all these trains, and it's kind of patterned after the local canyons that we have. It's quite clean down there. They have open houses once a month. You can go down there and check it out. So, what now? Here's this beautiful place has been sitting empty for quite a while now. The building, you can see the deterioration some there. The water comes in through the roof. There are some problems there. City put out a request for proposal. What do we do with this place? Nothing wrong with that. You know, we understand it's been tricky for the city to know what to do with this place. There was a proposal made to put a 7-story apartment building there, and that's under consideration right now. Happy to answer any questions. We really believe that this would change the purpose of this place quite dramatically. It would really mean turning it over to private ownership, and it's public right now. Would really end the possibility of revitalizing the hot springs there, and end the public use of this place that has been a public gathering place for so very long. So, the water, just want to mention a couple of things about it. Phil here, wave Phil. He's been with us for a while, and he went ahead and had the water tested for pollution. That came back squeaky clean. We were very happy to hear about that. We, of course, want to learn everything we can about that water. We do know some about it. The mineral content includes sodium, calcium, magnesium, and sulfur. Haven't tested for some of the trace minerals, but those things are always there. We just don't know which ones. And we know that mineral water has a lot of healing properties. We know that in other places in the world, they highly, highly value these kinds of natural mineral springs. In Europe, in Asia, there are whole cities focused around the actual water that's there. So, what is possible? How could this place possibly serve the community? Here's a nice quote from the Salt Lake City Master Plan talking about the value of gathering places. But here, when we talk about warm springs, I love this quote from the feasibility study that was done in 2006. The significance of Wasatch Springs Plunge lies not only in its architecture and expression, but in the social narrative of the history of the building and site articulated. So this really is an important place for our social fabric, potentially. So what if we had a safe place we could get together and really get to know each other and fall in love with each other? That's what I'm all about. What if we did that in the very place where it already happened? And what if we created it by the community and for the community? You can say, that's us. Okay. That's not the other. That's not the somebody else is going to do this and hand it to you on a silver platter. This is that, no, we are the community. We know that even though it's been empty, there have still been a lot of people that care about the place and who have been dreaming about the place. And you talk to the city and they're like, oh, you know, we've been hearing people say these things for a long time. And they have. But what they haven't seen is an organized community saying, not only do we care about this place, but we can actually do this. So, some interesting numbers I wanted to share. So the survey, right? We've got a website, warmspringsalliance.org. There's a survey there that, I think 150 plus. They roll in all the time. I haven't checked really recently. But if you haven't taken that survey, please go there, because not only do we want to hear what you have to say, but we want to capture it in a way that we can actually use that data. Okay, so we ask you what you want to see, we ask you what you do and don't want, we ask questions like, how often do you visit Warm Springs Park now? Right? And right now the results say 83% of our respondents are saying they don't visit Warm Springs Park regularly at all right now. Now, when we asked if there was a hot springs that we could soak in and a gathering place, how often would you visit them? And this is based on their address and all of that. 96% of you say you would visit regularly if there were a place like this to go. That's quite a difference. We also have 457 comments at last count. Again, they're still coming in. But so far, these are the comments from the petition, right? So 22 plus 100 people have signed the petition. You have an option to leave a comment when you do that. And 457 comments from that, it's really clear what is most important. And what we're hearing there is 267 of those comments talk about the importance of preserving the history of this place. 240 of them express the value of keeping it public, focusing on this place benefiting the whole community. 189 mention the springs. It's about the springs. It's about the water. It's about the water, okay? We get it. And then it just goes down from there. But those are the three main things. The history, the community use, and the springs are what we hear most often. Yes, here.
Yeah, I was the fortunate one from 1971 to 1975. I used that facility daily because I had no shower in my studio. Anyway, I remember when they closed it, and the reason was they couldn't afford to heat the building. Why aren't the warm springs used as a thermal source? And have you looked at that?
Interesting question. Yes, we've definitely looked at that. Do you want to comment on that, David? He's one of the water nerds.
Hi, I'm David Shear. I've been working with the Warm Springs Alliance since before the summer. I'm an architect and an urban planner, so sometimes it falls to me to get on these kind of technical things. The water certainly could be used to heat the building. The building simply wasn't designed to use it that way. All of the mechanical systems, the heating, the cooling, the electrical, the plumbing, everything in the building will have to be replaced. So in the process of restoring the building, we have the opportunity to use the hot water to heat the building.
Yes.
Where is the Capitol Community Council on this?
Where is the Capitol Hill Neighborhood Council on this? David is with the board of that group. He will tell you.
I'm on the board of the Capitol Neighborhood Council, and we have passed, as an entire council, not just the board, a resolution in favor of the Warm Springs Alliance proposal.
I don't know how many of you received community magazines set up by Zions, I think for entrepreneur. It mentioned in there about a place called Beale, Idaho. And apparently this gentleman found out that they have a hot spring. So he sold his grocery store and moved in to where the spring was, and he refurbished it. Now he's making very good source of income. And so if all of us have a hot spring in here, rather than going to Lava Spring, Idaho, or going to Crystal Spring, we might as well stay in our neighborhood and let them have the revenue that we can use. Maybe we ought to lobby the state and ask them to appropriate some money.
Thank you, Erlinda. And I'll just say, we have looked at this whole big picture and how do you make this work, right? Now, we know that the city's perspective would be, okay, how can this pay? Yeah, get it? And when you look at it as a commercial proposition, then the housing seems necessary to squeeze as much money as it needs to have to refurbish the building, right? Now, if we look at that picture differently and we say, well, what if it's a public and private partnership? Those are all very unique in the way they're structured. How do we create the best benefit from this place without trying to squeeze as much money as we can out of it? Then the numbers are very different. And we actually have a plan that shows a very strong, healthy revenue stream running with that. So if we're agreed on the concept, if this is really the best thing to happen, then we get to the question of how. And that's a great question. right? But we need to be on the same page in terms of, do we want housing there, or is it really not the ideal place for housing? Yes.
I've lived in the Granary district for the last 6 years, and it's been interesting to see how much development and the density that they've been paying attention to there with housing. And I do think you have to be incredibly careful when you get some developer who's saying, oh, well, we can do it this way. I think you have to be really careful about who you get in there. And I think that if you can avoid that, it would be best, personally. But I also have a question that has to do with the timeline. I'm wondering if the city has a particular timeline, because that's one of the other things I've noticed in the Granary district. In those 6 years, it's kind of staggering, and it's not. I mean, I think it's great how much housing and affordable housing is going on in my neighborhood, but it really. You can see how it doesn't really work for everyone, and it does change the nature of the community if it's not designed with history in mind, or I mean, 7 stories is going to impact people in lots of different ways, whereas like a couple stories might be very different.
Thank you. So the question, do we know the timeline? I'm sorry to say I don't. There are questions that we would love to know more about. There are folks at the city where we actually don't really know what their position is, and we're trying to find out. So, yes, Ewa.
I don't really have a question, just want to make a statement. I have a copy here. In March of 2002, I actually put together a letter of intent to turn the Wormswings building into a spa, European spa. And I only got 2 minutes by Rocky Anderson to show him my proposal, and he totally ignored me. But at that time, I was looking for this whole project as a really private project, leasing it from the city for 20, 30, 40 years to attract tourists from all over the world and turn this into a jewel in our neighborhood and also in the city, because you see lots of those European spas, so-called spas here in the city, but they really don't know what European spas are, because I'm from Austria, I know. Anyway, and at that time, I actually had investors ready to invest $10 million, which at that time was sufficient to turn it into that, which of course now it's probably going to be more like 20 million. But I just wanted to say that the interest is very long at this building, but the city is ignoring people who are interested to really turn this into something really nice. And it's something what actually the community wants, not what the city or some developer out there wants. This is an open space area. We don't want an apartment building there at all, period. Okay, and I will fight it. But also, being from Austria, we have a very old, it's called a Roman spa. And it started in the 1600s. No. But it's really what's so unique, and I have actually some pictures here. What is so unique, they really took this to their heart. They turned this Roman spa into a public spa and really preserved the history of the buildings, of the pools and everything. And they actually even put a little sand beach in there, which is actually the largest sand beach in Austria, which is probably very big. But it's unbelievable what they have done. Yes, it was a lot of money, but there is a way to do those things, and I think it would be a dramatic increase of not only revenues, but I think it will really put this area on the map, not only in the state of Utah, but all over the world, because this is so unique here. So I hope that everybody supports this idea. And by the way, I'm probably going next year back to Austria for a couple of weeks, and I'm planning to go there, visit this area again, the Roman spa, and to get some more information. It's very particular questions about like the water and all of that. But anyway, that's my opinion.
So I want to get started on the breakout groups, and promise we will hear any of you for as long as you want to say anything or ask questions. What we've got right now is several working teams. There's been a lot happening, and we've got some of those team leaders here. First and foremost, I want to have, or next, I want to have everybody who has been actively working on this to come on up. That means Phil and Wendy and Bijan and Fred and David and Mark and Michael and Catherine and Britt and anybody else who's here, Jim and Michael and, okay. So these are some of the folks who have put in time and vision and resources, and it's amazing what we've accomplished in a very short time. All volunteer, quite amazing. So what we're going to do next is I'm going to describe the teams that are already working, and then I would just invite you to pick one that you want to go have a breakout group with and chat, ask questions, talk about strategy and what's next. We have, let me give the signs out so you know who you might go to. We have David here. He's coming on our board. He's going to be with the team talking about the building, the water, the springs, and the uses, potential uses. Now we've gathered a lot of information already, but we do want to hear your ideas. So come on and talk to David if that's where you feel inspired. And we have Fred Coyote with the business team. This man is a amazing executive geek, fabulous with a spreadsheet. He's done corporate turnaround work. He's quite a powerful guy. So he's heading the business team tonight. We also have community outreach. Tonight this will be Catherine. So we want any community that wants to be part of this conversation, that wants to be part of the decision-making process, to be aware of what's going on. So we've reached out to many already, community councils, secular communities, spiritual communities. That's where Wendy would come in with one of these communities. The Utah Integrative Health Alliance has been a really active part of this. So Phil and Wendy, Britt also, amazing experience all of these people have in so many different areas. So we're just breaking out into the few teams that are the most active with the Warm Springs Alliance right now. Okay, so if you're part of a community or interested in working in that way, come see Catherine. We also have our PR team and media, Bijan, Hosini. So if you are interested in spreading the word, press releases, story writing, social media, graphic work, web work, you'll see Bijan for that. And then we have fundraising, that's going to be me. Anything to do with those money questions. Where is the money? How do we find the money? What have you got already? All of that, you can come see me. Then we have on activism, Michael McLean. He's also a resident historian. He spent years researching that place. He's going to be guiding some walking tours up there very soon as we can. Actually, I'll just ask you now, who all would be interested in going on a walking tour even if it's cold? Oh, great. Okay, that answers our question. We were like, will people actually show up if it's cold out? Michael can tell us all kinds of amazing stories. So we'll do that, and hopefully we'll get to videotape that tour as well. But thank you, Michael, for doing that. So if you are interested in the petition, in what else you can do right now, letter writing, anything that has to do with making the voices heard, go see Michael. And if you're not sure who to talk to, just guess. You can float around a little bit, okay? Just listen to the conversations. I know there are still questions, but we also want you to engage with what are your inspirations? What are your gifts and skills? And what are the specific ways that you think, right? These are so valuable. And this is how we create this by the community, for the community. That's us. So we're going to do that for about 20 minutes, and then we're going to come back and hear the reports from each of these teams about next steps and inspirations. And I just also want to thank Jim for the graphic design. He's done a ton of good work for us, and I think we've got everybody that's standing there. Mark, of course, and many, many others that aren't here tonight. I mean, there are literally hundreds and hundreds of people who are engaged and tracking and interested and wanting to help. So what we're seeing in this room is a very small drop. There's so many more. We're in a great and abundant community here. It's quite amazing to see who's showing up. So each of you with the sign, just pick a spot in the room. Go there, hold up your sign so anybody can join you. If you need to leave, make sure you check the petition. Get on the email list. That's also there on that sheet. And I send weekly updates. So go ahead and go to your groups. So, what else? Chris, you stayed. I'm so sorry. I forgot to have you come on up. Let's hear from Chris Wharton, our city council guy, about how do you see this, Chris?
Hello. Well, I really just came tonight to listen because I think the whole problem that we're in right now is that it's sort of not a grassroots, not a community input decision from the beginning. And so I wanted to hear what different ideas people have, what funding ideas people have, and just get a sense for how much the community is willing to engage to try to change the course of this decision. So I know that right now that there's a lot of focus in the city on housing, but I think that there are also a lot of areas in the city where we can focus on housing, and there's not any other warm springs in the city that I'm aware of. So I want to make sure that that people are committed to being engaged long-term over this and showing up to city council meetings, showing up to community council meetings, because that really is what it's going to take, and we don't want to get fatigued. But yeah, it's going to be a long process to try to do this, but I'm here to be supportive, I'm here to listen, and I'm here to take any other questions or comments or concerns that you have. Yeah.
I'm just wondering if you walked into our meeting.
Yes.
I'm not sure when you walked in about uses.
Yes.
One of the things that was said was if there's a way we can push to have the refinery moved out and how not really. I mean, that would be great.
That would be great. We might need some Superfund money for that, but yeah, fix that whole land. But yeah, yeah, that's a good. I like that. Okay. Any other questions? Anything else that I can answer for anybody? Good news is I hear your message, and yeah, I'm with you. I support you, and I want to make this happen. So let me know how I can help all of you as well.
Oh, you can help in so many ways, Chris. Thank you, thank you, thank you. To have somebody in the city that is supportive is huge. He is officially anointed on January 3rd, right? Second? Okay. Send our congratulations. Hang on just a second, Eric. I want to make sure people can leave if they need to. So, thank you. Again, the petition, the survey. I'll stay for any questions. The library closes at 9. Otherwise, we're good to go. And just thank you for being willing to engage. And really, this is how it gets done. And I believe there's room for everybody. So, thank you. Lots of love. Thank you.
What did you want to say? Do you want to do my